Coming up on this week's episode of TechSNAP, we've got some top tips to turn you from ssh-novice to port forwarding master in no time. Plus the latest on a confusing story of Kaspersky, the NSA, and a bone-headed contractor. Then our backup sense is tingling with the story of $30,000 worth of Bitcoin lost to a forgotten pin. Plus, we've got your fantastic feedback, a record-setting roundup, and so much more on this week's episode of TechSNAP. Welcome to TechSNAP, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly systems, network, and administration podcast. This is episode 343 for October 31st, 2017. This episode is brought to you by our three excellent sponsors, DigitalOcean, Ting, and IX Systems. My name is Wes, and joining me, it's our dear friend, Mr. Dan. Welcome, Dan. Can't even pronounce my own name today. What's wrong with me? I guess it's Halloween, so we should be spookier. But you know what? You're spooky enough already with all the terrifying things you normally tell us about on this here program.
I'm sure it's all your sweater. That's all it is your sweater.
It's my sweater. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Anything new in your world before we jump into our jam-packed show today?
I found out, or rather I experienced firsthand, when you set no exec equals no on a ZFS data set, and you try and run a script, even just a shell script, it says permission denied. And then you run around trying to figure out, why is it permission denied? You can't figure it out.
That sounds like it would be pretty confusing, especially if you forgot about that property that you'd set. Maybe you'd done it a long time ago. And
I had only just set it. And what I had done is I have a document that I've laid out all the directories that are going to be used for the new Freshports Mail web server.
Okay.
And I went through and I said, okay, I'm going to be setting this. And it's no exec equals no on almost every data set. And then when I finally, moved stuff into the new data sets and then brought everything up, I said, yeah, that looks good. That's there. Yeah, that's good. Why isn't it processing commits? What's going on? Why is it saying permission denied? Oh, yeah, that's plus X. Yeah, I can read it.
Right. Yeah, I said everything
Totally forgot. If all I'd done is gone in and said, ZFS set exec equals no, it would have been, I would have noticed it right away. But because I did a whole bunch of things all at once,
didn't factor in.
It took me 15 or 20 minutes to figure out what was going wrong.
Oh, that's annoying. But you got it all working now.
Yes, excellent. It is all working now.
All right. Well, you know what else is working today? It's our show. Yeah, that's right.
Showtime.
Should we jump right in then?
Yes, we should.
Okay. So I guess first up today, it's going to be a little bit, it's just some practical advice, a little different than what we normally do.
Yeah, it's very lighthearted. There's nothing serious on this. And it is actually very interesting. I did not know that you could do this. Bob Plankers is letting us know. Did you know that when you're using OpenSSH from the command line, you have a variety of escape sequences as available to you? I did not know this. I knew that ~. Gets you out of like a Kermit session or something. I remember doing some sort of session to something. I think it might have been a serial port connection. I knew that ~. got you out of that.
Oh, okay.
SSH somewhere, then type tilde and question mark to see all the options. You get something like this, and it gives a list of supported escape sequences, including ~. To terminate the connection and any multiplexed sessions. ~B sends a break to the remote system. ~C opens a command line. We'll get to that. A command line? ~R requests a rekey. That would be interesting to see in effect. I'd run a TCP dump and then do a rekey and see what you see going. ~Control-Z does a suspend SSH. And so that basically does a local Control-Z instead of a remote Control-Z.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're SSH something and you do a Control-Z, whatever you're in will background.
Yeah,
but if you want to background the SSH process and do something locally, tilde ampersand will background SSH when waiting for connections to terminate. And tilde question mark will give this list that you said. And if you do tilde tilde, it'll send the escape character. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention is that when playing around with this, I couldn't get the tilde to work sometimes, and I couldn't figure it out. Tilde has to be the first character you type. So if you do tilde, if you do a character and then backspace and then tilde, it won't work. It has to be the first character,
right?
After hitting enter.
Yeah, you'll just end up with like that. You'll just end up with typing it, and that's no good.
Right. Now this command line is interesting. In the command line, you can do forwarding. You can request a local forward, a remote forward, a dynamic forward, and you can cancel a forward request. I don't know what a dynamic forward is. That's interesting. Huh.
Oh, a dynamic forward is like, there's more to it, but one instance is like a -D for like a SOCKS 5 forwarding. So rather than
binding, just forwards all of, okay.
Yeah, so you can, one thing, I'll use that commonly. Let's say Firefox makes it really easy in the advanced settings. You can go use a local SOCKS 5 proxy, SSH-D, 1080 as a port. You can use whatever port, but I think that's fairly standard. And then any requests Firefox makes, all get, and you can have an option to do DNS as well, all get proxied through SSH and dynamically resolved rather than a static forward from one, port hostname pair to another host port name pair. You can browse the entire internet over your SSH connection that way.
So basically all requests that hit there get forwarded?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty handy. You'll have to give it a shot.
Huh. It almost sounds like a VPN.
Yeah, you can use it like that way, but you have to configure support in the application. Has to be able to use that as a proxy. It won't work otherwise.
It would be useful just to see the forwarded connections.
Oh yeah, no, that seems actually very useful. I've never
done that. I've never done forwarded connections. Are they referring to like when you do a bastion host and then you can connect to one and then automatically connect to the next one? I've seen that sort of configuration. Instead of SSHing to the bastion host and then to the host that you really want to SSH to, you can tell SSH to, hey, listen, connect here and then connect over there, the next thing. I think that's what it's referring to, but I've never really tried it because I don't really have bastion hosts. And when I do, I just connect to one and then the other. I do have one bastion host in a way. I have a external Nagios instance on DigitalOcean, not the one that fell over earlier this week.
That's good.
We should talk about that too.
Yeah.
Very briefly. Remind me to come back to DigitalOcean. Did you read about that?
No,
how we got locked out of DigitalOcean and couldn't get in?
We'll have to talk about that.
It was clever. I know I'm not saying I was clever. The solution someone gave me was clever.
Oh, perfect.
So I do have one external Nagios instance, which is on DigitalOcean, and I can only SSH to it from hosts outside my home network.
Okay, I see.
So it's hosts out there on the internet with predefined static IPs. Home has a dynamic IP, and I only allow incoming SSH connections from certain locations.
Ah, I see.
And so what I do is SSH from my laptop to one of these hosts to the next one. And I think that's what they're talking about by forwarded connections, isn't it?
That's one component of it, but you can also just do it most commonly -L and -R. As they say here, those do local or remote forwards, and so you can then just forward a specific port. So you can either take a port that's on the remote host and be able to view it as if it was a local port, or the reverse, take a port, like let's say you have a web server listening on your machine and you want to make it available on a web server temporarily, then you can do a remote forward and do that.
I've seen that used. I'm familiar with that type, but I've never done this. What they're talking about. So if that's all they're talking about is forwarding connections, it's much more straightforward than I thought. Okay. Now, have we exhausted this? I think so. I can't think of anything else to talk about here. It is. Go.
Oh, I was just saying, it's just very handy to know. A lot of people, like you're saying, if you don't know that it exists, then you're really just missing out on some functionality. I think a lot of people get told sort of the tilde period to break out of a connection, as sometimes that's your best bet to escape SSH session from hell. But I think the rest of it is less commonly known. I'm sure there's going to be some people out there who are like, yeah, whatever, this is old hat. I use it all the time. But there's some handy tips in here, especially if you just forget and you want to be able to know. You can do tilde question mark. That's probably the best one. Then you get this whole little guide. I can also see it. Maybe you have a long running SSH session. You want to add or remove forwards, check in on what has been forwarded.
That's what I find really neat, is being able to add and remove forwards during the session. I had no idea you could do that.
Yeah, without having to tear it down. It does seem handy, like maybe you have to plug in a hardware key or something like that, or it's a really long password, whatever. One less way to do it a little more quickly without having to tear down and reset up the session. So that's nice. Anyway, you wanted to come back to DigitalOcean.
Oh, yeah. One morning this past, I guess it was last week now, late last week, sitting in a coffee shop before going to work, and which is back here at home. So I go for coffee, sit there, do my email, come back. I said, oh, yeah, what's his name server? We've talked about upgrading it from 10.3 to 11.1, and we haven't done it. We usually upgraded his servers around Christmas time when the business is slow, but he's sold the business. So I'm just helping him with this little mail server, and all it does is maintain mail for his domain. So I said, yeah, that won't take very long to upgrade. I've got half an hour. Let's do this. So I ran the FreeBSD update and stuff like that. And I was upgrading from 10.3 to 11.1. Everything went fine. There's a lot of really strange merge stuff going on with etcrc.subber. And I said, that was weird. And then rebooted it, and it didn't come back. And I said, oh, well, I'll just jump into the DigitalOcean console.
Yeah, totally. It's super handy.
It's great. I use it all the time when I mess up my own droplet. So I have his login details. He's given me his login details. So I logged in, and it said, send us this login code that we just sent to your email address. That's the droplet. All the email for his domain goes to that droplet. Oh. He has no other email address. So I said, I don't know what to do here. And so I tried to find something. I went to DigitalOcean to open a ticket. You got to log in to
open a ticket. Boy.
So I sent them a non-ticket request and didn't hear back. That other guy may have heard back by now. So I got to work, and I posted something on Twitter and said, do I know anyone at DigitalOcean that can help here? Mm-hmm. And someone not at DigitalOcean said, do they still have control of their DNS? Yes, they did. Well, you can spin up another MX and point the domain at that MX. Brilliant idea.
Totally.
So I just spun up a jail, changed their DNS because I had credentials for their DNS.
Okay.
Pointed it at the new jail. 5 minutes later, a whole bunch of email authentication things flooded in.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to try and read any of them because I wouldn't be able to figure out which one was still authentic. Mm-hmm. And all I was doing is spooling these email addresses, email to forward on later. So I waited for that to settle down, then sent another authentication request trying to log in, got the email, got logged in, went from there.
Awesome. That's pretty handy, yeah.
It got worse.
Oh.
The reason the system could not boot was because etcrc subber was borked. It was wrong. And then the next problem was trying to edit that file, vi etc.
Yeah, right.
RC subber. Make the changes. Oh, there's way too many changes to make here. I'll just move the file out of the way and SCP up another one, because I look closer. There's about 800 to 1,000 lines different.
Wow. Okay, something weird happened. That's a big change.
Yeah. So I went to save the rc.subber away to save it to look at it later.
Backup.
Read-only file system.
Yes, of course.
And I went through, mount -a.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Tried various things. I can't remember what the actual solution it was. It might have been something like mount -a -uw, something like that. I put it in a blog post. It was so interesting. And finally, I got it loaded up. But then I didn't have any of my network settings anywhere.
You're just really starting from scratch over here.
So I had to go back to DigitalOcean, which I was still logged in, find out what the IP addresses were.
Go set that up.
Go through that. Then I was able to SSH up. I originally thought, hey, it's only 2,000 lines in this file. I can copy and paste it into my console session. No, there's no paste in the console.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. And that's a lot to type by hand, I should say.
Yeah. So once I got the MX up and running, it took about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get everything sorted out. But I have no idea how RC subber got messed up. None whatsoever. But I have no doubt it was something that I did, not something the FreeBSD update process did.
Right. Interesting. Well, I'm glad you got wrestled control back, and you're now back in command. Yikes. Well, that was a heck of an adventure.
I don't wish it on anyone, but it was fun.
I don't wish it on anyone either. I guess before we move on, one thing I did want to add that we didn't cover about the article before is you can change the escape character as well. So if you don't like tilde, or if you use it for anything else, then there's some options in the SSH config to modify that. All right. Well, go on.
And wait, this is not a new blog post. This is a 6-year-old blog post. So this stuff has been around for long. This isn't something new.
Yeah, take yourself to the next level. Become an SSH power user.
Yes, there you go.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Dan. That's a handy-dandy article, that is for sure. And a heck of a DO horror story. But you kind of highlighted right there in that story all the reasons that DigitalOcean is great, and we're proud to have them as a sponsor. Not only is it super fast, easy to use, and they have FreeBSD support, so hey, that's pretty great too, but they provide a lot of, they're secure. They don't make it easy for strangers to try to take over your account, and they provide a number of different ways to be able to debug your account, right? So one of those that I love is the HTML5 console. You can log in just like you have a regular console to a regular old virtual machine or a piece of hardware. From what you know and love, a lot of their competitors don't necessarily have this, or it uses a weird Java UI. Maybe you've seen those, or heaven forbid, Flash. No. DigitalOcean, it's first class. HTML5 works in just about every browser, works really well. I know Dan's used it. I've used it. It's great. DigitalOcean has a ton of those kind of improvements, optimizations, and an incredibly intuitive UI. Their dashboard is just top-notch, super fast, super easy to use, and it's intuitive. That's the big difference, right? There's not 1,000 different sub-menus that you can get buried in reading documentation for days. There's tons of documentation to read, but you won't need it because it's so simple. Even their API, everything's built on their API. There's a ton of third-party open source contributions that tie into the API. Everything gets updated really fast. They're one of these people that, if you're using Vagrant or any of these sort of CI, DevOps integration tools, they all have DigitalOcean support. It's all pretty well first class. Maybe you use Terraform. DigitalOcean's right there. And I'm sure they'll have an API to use Spaces before too long if they don't already. What Spaces, though? Yeah, I just snuck that in there. What Spaces? Spaces is a new beautiful, simple, and scalable object storage service from DigitalOcean. And like anything from DO, it's going to be super simple to get started with, super easy to use, and have simple, transparent pricing. Yeah, that's right. Plus, it's going to be way cheaper than the competitors because that's just DO style. What's their main game, though? Maybe you don't need object storage. You should definitely go try it out because it's super handy. It is HTML5 interface to upload files right to it, handy-dandy share links, a ton of great stuff. Maybe you're like Dan and I, and you just need some compute, right? You've heard about the cloud. You want to get something for yourself. Use our promo code SNAPOcean. That gets you started and gets you a $10 credit. What can you buy with that incredible credit? Oh, my friends, head on over to their pricing page, and you will see DigitalOcean has the best droplets. They call them droplets. You may know them as a VPS or a virtual machine. It all runs on the KVM hypervisor. It's got 40 gigabit E right to that hypervisor, so you've got incredible transit. Oh boy. And it just gets better from there, starting at $5 a month. Yeah, that's right. Or 0.7 of a cent. You get 512 MB of memory, one virtual CPU, 20 gigs of all SSD disk, and it's just all SSD disk over at DigitalOcean, and a whopping 1 terabyte of transfer. Plus, receive free access to services including monitoring, cloud firewalls, and so much more. So maybe you're not like an IP tables expert. You don't need to be a DO. They've got these kinds of things provided for you, just like you'd expect from any modern cloud provider. It's incredible. So use our promo code SNAPOcean. Head on over to DigitalOcean, get started today, and hey, let us know if you have any fun stories, just like Dan did. Thanks, Dan. And thank you to Dio for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. All right. Well, with that, I guess it's time for our next story today. This one goes back to the realm of, not just a handy tip, so regular TechSNAP territory.
Yeah, this one needs a little bit of background. If you haven't heard it already, it's not going to make any sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But not so long ago, the U.S. government said, hey, listen, if you're using Kaspersky, please stop. And that was a directive for the U.S. government departments, I think. And they had 30, 60, or 90 days, I think, to get rid of it. And the reason why they decided to get rid of it, I don't know if that was public then, but just a few weeks ago, we covered a story that seemed to indicate that they were tipped off by the Israelis, because the Israelis were in Kaspersky looking around and found U.S. top secret documents downloaded to Kaspersky. And they said, how did this happen? What are they doing? And there was all kinds of theories that Kaspersky was, what better way to collect documents but through a virus scanning service. And it was speculated that's what happened. But now Kaspersky here is coming back and saying, well, no, it's not our fault. It's the NSA contractor's fault who put top secret documents on his personal laptop. And what came out here is an explanation from Kaspersky as to how the top secret NSA documents wound up on their servers. And they're putting all the blame on this NSA contractor's dumb mistake. That's their quote. So this sounds feasible, but it also sounds like a plausible deniability. So according to Kaspersky's account, the company had been tracking malware tools connected to a hacking collective that's become known as the Equation Group, which is thought to be connected to the NSA. The company's software, Kaspersky's security network, was installed on the home computer of a man who has been anonymously described as a contractor for the NSA. Kaspersky says the analyst's computer was infected with malware through an, quote, illegal Microsoft Office activation key generator, unquote. Doesn't everybody have those?
Of course.
That was apparently used to deactivate some pirated software that was downloaded on the computer. Detection for that particular backdoor had been part of Kaspersky's package since 2013. So I'm not sure I would download software to generate an illegal key or generate a pirated key. I'm not sure I would do that. And if I was, I would have all my virus software running. But then it says here that the virus software would stop that.
Yeah.
Quoting here, executing the keygen would not have been possible with the antivirus enabled. Okay, so that's why he disabled it, is because he couldn't get it to run. The malware dropped from the Trojanized keygen was a full-blown backdoor, which may have allowed third parties access to the user's machine, the company said. So they're not, it may have allowed the third party to get access to his machine, so they're claiming that someone else could have gotten this information. But it gets better. when Kaspersky's product was re-enabled, the user apparently scanned their system multiple times when the software detected new and unknown variants, that's in quotes, of malware connected to the equation group, which people think is thought to be connected to the NSA.
Right.
So now, that's when things went wrong. A 7-zip archive of documents was retrieved for analysis because the user had set the software to send reports of malicious detections. When Kaspersky's researchers opened the file, they found that data headers labeled the documents classified property. The company's founder, Eugene Kaspersky, tells the Associated Press that he told his employees immediately that it must be deleted. Okay, so before I tell you why I think this is implausible, I want to get some of your feedback on what you think of this report.
Well, on the surface, I can see where their story makes some sense. Like, sure they were running it. I can certainly imagine disabling it. I wonder if this might have been some sort of enterprise grade, not necessarily like your personal malware protection, but maybe if you're a big enterprise, then the stuff you have does prevent running keygens and other type nefarious type utilities. And I can also imagine how, yes, like they do want to collect samples of malware and other suspicious files, but it does seem a little too convenient.
I find the bit about not being able to run the keygen while the software was running perfectly plausible. That makes sense. So you turn it off, you run it, and then you turn it back on again. Then you see all this stuff, so you start scanning it. But why was a 7-zip archive of documents considered suspicious? It's documents.
Yeah.
And basically the software enables, where was it? What's the exact word? The malware dropped from the Trojan eyes, yeah, and they're talking about that's when things are, because the user had set the software to send reports of malicious detections. Reports. That doesn't say, yeah, if you find a problem with one of my files, you can send it away.
Yeah, definitely. But that's definitely different.
That does happen. The software does report back variants. It does. It does send back details of that.
Right. And you might expect hash sums of binaries or other things to be sent and that sort of thing, or fingerprints of utilities that they use to identify. Well, what I would be curious to see is okay, well, does this same 7-zip, does it still flag to are other virus vendors flagged by this? Is there something malicious there, or was this just totally bogus?
It's going to be a unique 7-zip archive of documents. It's not going to be found anywhere.
Oh, right. No, totally. It's more like, does Kaspersky still, within them, can they scan it, the one that got uploaded to them? If they scan it, does their software still flag it? Because that's a problem.
And I initially thought, oh, no, why would they open some files sent from someone somewhere? But then I realized, well, they're going to think oh, look, the software found something new here. We better look at it and find out what it is. And so they opened it and saw, oh, this is just straightforward documents. Oh, look what it says here. Oh. So yeah. When I initially read this, I thought, no, there's no way. But now I do think this is entirely plausible as to what happened. And it wasn't actually something that went out and looked for documents and pulled it down. But why it was labeled, the only issue here is why it was detected as a new and unknown variant of a problem. Why did the software detect it like that?
Right.
Because it's just a 7-zip archive. The fact that the software sent an example back is perfectly valid. That happens because when they find a new virus and they send it back, that's how they're detected. They suddenly get 10,000 reports of the same piece of malware. That's how things get flagged and looked at. But this is just one file. Anyway. According to Kaspersky, the fault rests on the shoulders of the NSA contractor who allegedly brought home government surveillance tools and then decided to activate their consumer antivirus software. So They brought home government surveillance tools, not documents. So it's two different things here. We can probably put that down to reporting, not incorrect facts or not inconsistencies. So, quoting again, so Kaspersky Lab is arguing that software is doing exactly what it was supposed to do and that it deleted the classified material when it realized what it had. I can find that very straightforward, but a key point that it is denying, a point that U.S. government officials have used to justify the ban on Kaspersky software from federal use, is the accusation that it may have customized its tools to hunt for keywords like classified or top secret. We're never going to know that unless you start reverse engineering the client. So I don't know who to believe now. I really don't.
You can trust me, Dan.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. I don't know who to trust. Not at all.
So you'll be installing Kaspersky software on all of your machines right after the show?
No. Let's read the. Pardon me. Let's read this one last paragraph. It's not the last paragraph, but this last one I'll read. As the AP notes, Kaspersky's story aligns with what several sources have told several media outlets. Someone working for the NSA broke protocol and took home classified information that was then transmitted to Russia because the worker was a bonehead.
Oh,
That's
boy.
a direct quote. And yes, this would never have happened, I'm sure, if he hadn't have taken this stuff home. It's not believed that the feckless analyst had any malicious intent, but an investigation is still ongoing. Where Kaspersky's story differs is that the company insists it didn't share the information with the Russian government, and it says that the worker's computer had a backdoor installed that could have been exploited by someone else. Unfortunately for the security company, whether it worked on behalf of Russia's spying operation or not, its reputation with the public is significantly damaged. Yeah, regardless of what happened, this is a black mark. The industry it works in is highly reliant on trust, and the accusations coming from the U.S. government, coupled with paranoia surrounding the Russian government, puts Kaspersky in an almost unwinnable situation. That I agree with. Yeah. For now, it's best to reserve judgment until at least the details of an independent analysis are released. But yeah, this. Can you imagine this being in part of a spy novel or something like that?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, it might not be a very thrilling spy novel, but
from a technical point of view, maybe interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, techno spy novel. There we go.
Yeah.
Boy, I feel you gotta feel a little bit sorry for the NSA that they keep hiring these contractors who really just can't keep their documents where they belong. I mean, hey, it benefits us over here at the TechSNAP program, but it's a little bit.
Don't take stuff home.
Yeah, right. I'm sure the policies are very clearly laid out. I'm sure you have to sit through 1,000 meetings of, hey, here's what the official information security policies are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Yikes. All right. Well, anything else about this one before we move on? Okay, well then, it's time for our next sponsor this evening. That's right, it's our dear friends over at Ting. Head on over to techsnap.ting.com. There you'll find a smarter way to do mobile. Maybe you fancy yourself a bit of a spy. I think I do now after that last article. You'll probably want a separate spy cell phone. On most of the major service providers out there, that's just simply not affordable. Not for a whim, not for a fun little side project. But on Ting, things are different. And that's just one of the many ways they're a smarter way to do mobile. And that's why it's mobile that makes sense. So what am I talking about here? All right, well, you don't even have to believe me. This is how simple it is. Just go to their rates page. Click on rates. techsnap.ting.com/rates. That's how you get started. And they say it better than I ever could right here on the page. The best plan? Why, the best plan is no plan. Only pay for what you use. Use less, pay less. Every month is different. Just play around here and you can get an idea for what you might spend in a month. So lines start at just $6 a month. For the price of a hamburger, you can have cell phone service. It's that simple. You probably already have a device that works on Ting. It works on both. They have both CDMA and GSM. They have a whole bring your own device page where you can go check out the IMEI number of your device. Make sure, verify that it'll work on the Ting network. Odds are it will. Bring that on over $6 a month. Then you get started. Now it's simple. Don't try to estimate what you might need. Don't sign a 2-year contract, whatever you do. No, just use your phone like you want to. Don't even think about it. Use your phone. You have your phone. You can pay for your phone. That's why you have it. Boom. Done. Use your phone. All right. Then Ting will tally up what you've used. Maybe you're pretty savvy like me, so you don't really use any minutes. Occasionally, occasionally grandma calls. She's not so hip on the technology, so no Wi-Fi calling for her, but you get 100 minutes for just $3 a month. So it's pretty reasonable. All right, maybe the same thing, couple text messages, and then there's Wi-Fi everywhere. There's probably Wi-Fi at your office. There's Wi-Fi here at the studio. There's Wi-Fi on buses today. So I bet you're going to stay maybe right around 500 megs, maybe a gig if you're splurging here. But boom, what does that get you? $22 a month. That's it, $22. So when you go to techsnap.ting.com, guess what? You're going to get a service credit of $25. That's why we say that'll probably pay for your first month of service. Maybe not if you're a big user, but that's the beauty of Ting. Some months you use more, some months you use less. Let's say you're going on a vacation, you start using your phone more. That doesn't matter because you'll make up for that cost with the rest of the year. That's just how it works over at Ting, and that's why the best plan really is no plan. But don't worry, Ting's got everything else that you might need. They've got 3-way calling, voicemail, and one of my favorite aspects, tethering. They don't stop you. They don't flash some weird custom ROM on your phone that prevents you from tethering or makes you call them up to get approved. No. And it doesn't come from some weird magic tethering data bucket. That's insane. No, data is data. You just pay for what you use. That's one of the reasons Ting makes a great backup internet connection. Head on over to their shop. Like maybe you don't already have a phone, you want a new phone, or you can even pick up a MiFi. They've got a ton of great options. Whatever you need to get connected, that's what Ting is here. They don't have to fight trying to keep cables up and running a whole bunch of infrastructure. No, they just resell CDMA, GSM service, whatever works for you in your area, and they'll have the shiny new iPhone X coming soon. So you can get the latest and greatest, run it on Ting, keep up with all your friends and neighbors, but know you'll get in one heck of a better deal. Check it all out at techsnap.ting.com, and thank you to Ting for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. All right, and that brings us to the final story of today's roundup. Roundup, what am I saying? That's the end of the show. This is the main segment, and it's fitting because this next story, it's a doozy.
Most of us have heard the story about a guy who threw away some hard drives that had bitcoins on it, and he never realized until later. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that Bitcoin isn't a physical thing. It's a logical thing. So basically, you have, you can literally think of it as a file. And that file contains your Bitcoins. And if you delete that file, those Bitcoins are gone. It's not like someone stole it. It's just like throwing $20 in the fire. It's gone. It's not like someone else has it. You just don't have it. So in this story, we have a chap who is a research director at the Institute for the Future's Blockchain Futures Lab. And he went and he bought $3,000 worth of Bitcoins. So it was 7.4 Bitcoins. So this was January 4th of this year. And his Bitcoins were worth about $3,000. And the title of the story is I Forgot My PIN, an epic tale of losing $30,000 in Bitcoin. So it starts off at 3, it winds up at 30. So over the course of the story, something changes and he's forgotten his PIN. So when he got it, when he got this Bitcoin, the thing that he did was he interviewed a bunch of Bitcoin experts, and they all told him that the safest way to protect your cash was to use something called a hardware wallet. Have you ever used Bitcoin or anything? Do you have a hardware wallet?
Yes, I have used Bitcoin. I do not have one, but I've seen them in use.
Okay, so it sounds like not much difference from a USB stick with some logic in it.
Yes, like a lot of hardware crypto tokens.
Mm-hmm. So this little device is basically a glorified USB stick that stores your private Bitcoin keys and allows you to authorize transactions without exposing those keys to the internet, where they could be seized by bad actors.
Yeah, exactly. Like you might have for like a GPG key or an SSH key, that sort of thing.
Yep. So he settled on a hardware wallet called the Trezor, Trezor, which is a Czech word for safe. Manufactured by a company called Bulletproof, or described as a manufacturer as Bulletproof. He bought one for $100. $100. Wow. So it arrived, he set it up, and the website instructed him to write down the 24 words randomly generated by the Trezor, one word at a time. The words were like aware and move and fashion and better.
Okay.
And these words were to be his recovery words, and it could be used to generate the master private key to his Bitcoin. How that gets used, I don't know, but basically they would have taken the key and generated these 24 words from it, and from those 24 words they can then recreate the key. So it's some algorithm that they're using. Now, he was also prompted to create a PIN which would lock the device. So if you want to use the device, you got to supply the PIN. So he wrote down the 24 words, and he figured that he chose a couple of short number combinations that he was familiar with and could easily recall. And he put that on the same piece of paper as a 24 word list. So you've got the recovery keys and you've got the PIN to get in. So sounds pretty safe. You've got one. You lose the device. You can regenerate the keys with the words to generate to get into the device. You've got the PIN. So either way. So it's important to keep the paper safe and hidden, because anyone could use it to steal the Bitcoins. So he transferred his currency from the web-based wallet into the device and put this orange piece of paper into a desk drawer in his home office. Okay. His plan was to buy a length of flat aluminum stock and letter punch the 24 words into it and then store it somewhere safe. He's going to do that right after the holidays. So, next section, the mistake. March 16th. Bitcoins were now worth about $8,800. So he's gained 10% in about 2 months. He's gained 10%, nearly 2.5. So it was 6:30 in the morning, and he was heading away on vacation. So what he did is he took the piece of paper and gave them a note. And Jane, if anything happens, show this paper to Corey. He'll know what to do with it. And he took the paper into Jane's bedroom, which was his older daughter, and stuck it under her pillow. And then they headed off to LA airport. They come back from holiday. Bitcoin's worth about $8,400. So it's dropped a little bit in just over 2 weeks. So they went to get the piece of paper out. They couldn't find it. They couldn't see it. It was nowhere. They checked the cleaners. The cleaners said that they had found it and threw it away.
No.
Yep. The cleaners had thrown away the piece of paper. So he knew the garbage had already been collected, but he went through the outside trash anyway. Nothing but egg cartons, espresso grinds, and the Amazon boxes. The orange piece of paper was decomposing somewhere under a pile of garbage in a Los Angeles landfill. Carla asked if losing the paper was a big deal. Not really. It's just a hassle, that's all. I'll have to send all the Bitcoins from the Trezor to an online wallet, reinitializing the Trezor, generate a new word list, and put the Bitcoins back in the Trezor. It wouldn't be so bad if I couldn't remember my PIN, but I know it's 551445.
Okay.
So now we're back to the same day, and he plugged it in and typed in the PIN. He must have made an error, he thought, so he tried the number again, being very careful. Wrong PIN. And he tried a variation, wrong PIN. This is getting ridiculous. I've done it at least a dozen times in recent months without having to refer to the paper. Okay, it's probably this. Wrong pin entered. So it makes you wait longer every time.
Yeah, sure. That's good.
The delay doubled every time a wrong pin. The number of wrong pin entries is stored in the memory, and you can't power cycle it to make the wait time go to 0. The best you can do by turning it on and off is make the timer start over again. So he was the thief trying to steal his own bitcoins back from his treasure. He might have kissed them goodbye. Eventually the timer got up to about 34 minutes, and he figured he'd be dead by the time he made his 33rd guess, which is going to be like 34 years away.
Oh, wow.
He told his wife, can't remember the pin. She asked if she'd saved the pin in his 1Password application. Told her he hadn't. When she asked me why, I didn't have an answer. I knew it would be a mistake to waste a precious guess. And anyway, we're going to jump forward here because the rest of this, it jumps forward to the next day and the next day when he tries all the thing. Yeah, he's spending all of his time waiting.
Gosh.
He starts investigating how he can get through. And someone said, hey, listen, I might have a way to get into it. But he didn't really trust that guy. Mm-hmm. So by now, we were in April. We're now in May, late May. And his bitcoins are worth $13,000. And he went away and tried hypnosis. After nearly 4 hours in the office, he decided the pin was 5514455. And it took him a couple of days to get the nerve to try. And he tried it. And it then said the treasurer said it was wrong. He's going to have to wait 4.5 hours. So the next entry, May, is now August. So it's a few months later. And his bitcoins are now worth $28,000.
No.
I couldn't escape the fact that the only thing keeping me from a small fortune was a simple number, one that I used to recall without effort and was now hidden in my brain, impervious to hypnosis, meditation, and self-scolding. I felt helpless. My daughter's efforts to sneak up on me and say, quick, what's the Bitcoin password? Didn't work.
That's adorable.
Some nights before I went to sleep, I'd lie in bed and ask my brain to search itself for the pin. I'd wake up with nothing. Every possible pin I could imagine sounded no better or worse than any other. I hope he was keeping a list of the pins that he tried.
Yes.
The Bitcoin was growing in value, and it was getting further away from me. I imagined it as a treasure chest on a Tron-like grid, receding from view toward a dimly glowing horizon. I would die without ever finding it out. So, going to scroll down again. I'm scrolling down a lot. So now, last we were at August 12th. Now we're at August 16th. Bitcoin is worth $32,000. He got an email from Satoshi Labs, the manufacturers of the Trezor. It said, Trezor firmware security update 1.52, meant to fix a security issue which affects all devices with versions lower than 1.52. In order to exploit the device, would have to break in, destroying the case. You'd have to flash and firmware, and this attack vector is eliminated, and your device is safe if you do this upgrade. So all regular listeners to this show should now be thinking the same thing. Could there be a vulnerability in Trezor's bulletproof security, one that I could take advantage of? So I went to look, and he found a post titled, Trezor, Security Glitches Reveal Your Private Keys. This is exactly what this guy needs.
Perfect.
The author included photos of a disassembled Trezor and a screen grab of a file dump that had 24 keywords and a pin.
Wow.
So this guy goes and talks to several people. He knows that he didn't upgrade to 152 because downgrading the firmware could have wiped the storage on the Trezor. So he's still on a vulnerable version, and he doesn't want to upgrade because there's $30,000 in there.
Yep.
So he went back and he talked to an author that he'd known for some time, and he said, listen, I know this 15-year-old kid who seems to know what he's doing. So he got in touch with it and said, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me? And he said, yeah, I think I can. So what they did is best to start by clarifying expectations and terms for the possibility of success, but also the possibility of failure, which is higher.
Yeah.
He told the owner said, I want step-by-step video instructions on what to do. I'll give you $200 up front and an additional $800 if I get my Bitcoins back. And so the guy agreed. And he also said, if you end up spending a lot of extra time preparing the instructions, let me know and I can increase the payment. So this was on about August 16th. So come August 24th, Bitcoins are worth 32,000. He said, hey, listen, I've got this. And listen, I really think, I spent a lot of time. How about I want to get 0.35 Bitcoins for the video and the exploit firmware, but then 0.5 Bitcoins if you're successful. So basically the guy's asking for $3,700, which is roughly 10% of what he's got in the Bitcoin. So the guy said, yeah, but he's got to pay out before he gets anything.
Right.
So long story short, he sent him 35 from another online wallet. And then he downloaded the stuff. And this is now August 26. And the stuff is worth $32,000. And this guy is breaking into his into his device. He did buy a second one to practice on first.
Nice.
And he went through this practicing several times. And at the end here, there is a video of what this guy is doing. And it worked. He got the 24 seed words he'd written on an orange piece of paper. It was there on the screen. And you can see it in this video. You can see those 24 words. Why he lets us see the 24 words? I think because he's already gotten it out and
right, it's
transferred the Bitcoins. Right? Yeah. And then what he needed next was the PIN. And he followed the instructions and he ran it and the PIN appeared. And the joy and the look on this guy's face in this video is just astounding. It's just absolutely great to see what this guy thinks. He's just so happy. And he says months of soul-crushing anxiety fell away like big clods of mud that had been clinging to my shoulders, not soldiers. And I can imagine how triumphant this was. I get excited about getting a technical thing solved, but this guy is getting a technical thing solved and getting $30,000.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit better, doesn't it?
So this, to me, is a perfectly acceptable way of exploiting for profit.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Yeah, very
because
much
it's your own. You're getting your own back. You're not stealing anything from anyone, but anyway.
Wow, that is quite a story.
Yes, it was very long. I apologize it was so long, but go and read it. Go and watch the video at the end.
It's worth diving through, that's for sure. Oh gosh. And for 30,000, yeah, that's a pretty good payout. And hopefully he's learned to be a little bit more careful when he is taking his Bitcoin OPSEC a little more seriously, because
you could have put all of that into a password manager.
Very simply, right?
Create a new password manager, put it on 20 different thumb drives, or even split them up and put it in different locations. I remember something about if you had a passphrase, you could divide it up amongst, say, 5 thumb drives and give them away to 5 trusted friends. Any 3 of those thumb drives would have reconstructed the data.
Oh, yeah, right, okay. That's a good way to do it.
You'd need 3 friends to collude. And that's fairly unlikely that 3 friends are going to betray you.
Yeah, just make sure you have some good friends.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's fascinating. If any of you out there have Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, I do hope that you're taking sufficient care of them, because while we Well, we all hope things like this don't happen. And I think it shows, like, he clearly had at least some understanding of Bitcoin, of how it works. He knew enough to buy a hardware wallet, right? So he's interested in all this sort of stuff, but just how a few small circumstances, when you only have one copy of something, what can really easily go wrong, even if it seems pretty unlikely at the outset.
I can't imagine how sick to my stomach I would feel if that pin did not work.
Yep.
And I'm just so glad that he persevered.
Yeah, that really makes the story, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I can't imagine. I just
either.
Can't imagine.
All right, well, don't make the same mistakes that we've just heard about. And maybe you don't trust cloud services to store this kind of thing, but you do want to make sure that you have reliable backups. Oh, my friends, we've got one last sponsor for you, and it's the place to be. Head on over to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. There you'll find the ultimate guide to buying a new server for open source. There's a ton of pitfalls you can avoid here. Inaccurate or overinflated quotes, being sold the wrong hardware, poorly built servers, missed deadlines, and the frustrations of outsourced tech support. There's so much more, though. IX Systems, they really are the people that know what they're doing. They've been here through .com bubbles and bursts. They have a great understanding of all the hardware, of all the businesses. If you go to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP, you'll really see what I'm talking about, because you can see the partners they work with, the people in the industry that they're partners with, people like Intel with their incredible Intel processors, people like NASA, Yelp, Disney, Sony, Berkeley. These are some of the customers of IX. You can be one too, and we hope you will be, because they see the value. IX is experts in custom hardware, custom storage, big data storage, whatever your needs are. IX is there, ready to help. They've got a super talented team of sales engineers and a great set of products ready-made for you. So maybe you do have some Bitcoin and you want to keep it safe. Maybe you have some encrypted files, but you want to make sure you have backups. Let me suggest the FreeNAS Mini. Super reliable, super easy to get started. You can buy it right from IX, or if you're an Amazon Prime customer, you can buy it with Prime. So it's great to get started with. It comes with a very, very clean, pretty well-designed chassis. It makes it super simple to do maintenance, replace hard drives if you need to, but odds are you won't need to. See, IX, they're pretty darn smart, so they know that most drives are going to fail within the first couple of days. So believe this or not, they're going to burn-in test your hardware. So it's super reliable. When it ships to you, it's ready to go. It's ready to work. The FreeNAS Mini is perfect for home office, small office, anywhere you just need a little extra storage. And by little, I mean, terabytes here. So not too little, maybe just little in IX terms. And it runs the awesome open source FreeNAS software. You can build it yourself if you want to, but the FreeNAS Mini is just beautiful. It's really well designed. It's really robust. They've put in a lot of time and effort to making sure this is a reliable, low power, easy to use system, easy to administer, but it's got all the power of ZFS behind it. So that's another thing about IX. They're super involved in the Open ZFS project. They work upstream. They help. They have a ton of people who are experts in using, battle testing, giant deployments, small deployments, ins and outs of the ZFS file system. And that's the knowledge you get to tap into. Their sales engineers are excited to talk to you. Give them a call. They have a great website you can buy, you can configure, you can test it all out on the website if that's what you want to do. But I think you'll be missing out, because when you give them a call, you'll talk to real humans who are excited technologists just like you. And you may not be an expert in this new realm of server. Maybe you're putting together your first data center. Sure, you do the software side, but you're not really that familiar with hardware. Whatever the story, maybe you're a hardware expert and you just want to get things done and ordered the right way the first time. Doesn't matter. Those are all perfect use cases for IX. And really, they make it so easy, especially with the FreeNAS Mini, but with all their products. Like, you just have no more excuse not to have reliable backups, reliable storage in your life. So head on over to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP, get started, go configure some things, and make sure you check out their social media, because they have a ton of great stuff out there. Go click on their blog page. You'll see all the cool conferences and places that they go, and you'll see some of their server envy posts. Don't miss those, because boy, do they have some beautiful custom servers that they built for people, and that's where they show them off. Hey, it looks like they were just at the OpenZFS Developer Summit. They've got their 2017 report, so make sure you check that out too. And thank you to IX Systems for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. And now it's time for the feedback. That's right, our favorite time in the show where we get to hear from you, our beloved audience. First up from Mr. B. Backup to tapes. Hey, everyone. Thank you very much for answering my question in Spy Tapes TechSNAP 340. But I failed to send you another question for your next show, which was coincidentally with no listener questions. Apologies for that. Hey, no worries, Mr. B. Anyway, well, mine is now some sort of a request here. You forgot to answer my second question in our previous email regarding doing backup to tapes. So what do you think? Is it a good idea to use ZFS for backup to tapes? Or is it better to use rsync or some other backup program such as rsync or Bacula? Great question, Mr. B. Sorry about that. I'm just going to turn this right over to our resident backup and tape master, the one and only Mr. Dan.
Would you say I'm biased in this area?
You may be. I wasn't going to go there, but
I think I am biased.
Yeah,
I would say
true.
yes. Use Bacula. Don't use tape for file system level type stuff. I prefer to put stuff on tape that is the real data, not the file system.
Just like actually the raw files or like
the raw
archives of
files.
them.
So make it file system independent.
Mm-hmm.
And you're much better off using Bacula to put the stuff on there than you are to use ZFS. Now, what you can do, and this is what I do, is if you're going to be backing up a ZFS-based file system, take a snapshot as part of your backup process and then back up the snapshot. Don't back up the live file system. Why? Because when you start backing up this file at the start of the file system, by the time you get to the end of the file system, this other file will be different than from when it was when you started backing this one up. By taking a snapshot, the snapshot is read-only, and it means that no changes will occur to any of the files in that snapshot while you're backing them up, which means when you restore, you will have a snapshot of what the files were when you started the backup. So they'll all be completely consistent. For example, a log file. A log file that you restore may indicate that something has happened when it actually happened 10 minutes ago. So because the files keep changing as you're backing up. So in short, don't back up live files, back up a snapshot. And use Bacula, not ZFS or rsync.
Is it worth setting up Bacula just for this case? Like if they already have if someone already has other backup situations in play, but they just want to add tapes as a
then just use TAR, the tape archiving tool. Yeah, so just use that instead and back up to tape that way. But no, that's still not going to be as good as using Bacula, but yeah,
but maybe a middle ground. Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Mr. B, for the feedback and keeping us honest there about answering all your questions. Much appreciated. Okay, so moving right along today, up next, we've got a letter from Jonathan. Jonathan writes about feedback on crack updates. I really do believe in trust, but verify. Are there any good tools, tests, scans, etc. that I can use to see if all my access points and Wi-Fi cards are updated at my friends and families, or just on my own network? Thanks, Jonathan. You got anything here, Mr. Dan?
I don't.
All right, well,
I don't think...
Oh, go on.
I don't think there's any way for you to interrogate an access point and say, hey, listen, what software are you running and has it been patched and what level is it at? Or in the case of a hardware WAP, what version is your firmware and what's running? Right,
those ones you'll probably have to go check. And I think we posted some links in our previous show notes about some here's every patch that we know of so far. So go check that out. I did find one Python script here. We'll have this in the show notes. And it's a pretty short script. Definitely go, inspect it before you're going to run it on any computer. Don't just trust the random internet. But basically, it's a wrapper over WPA supplicant to try to run the attack against yourself. So it looks like it's got Kali Linux dependencies here. So go get Kali, run the commands here, go download the Python script, It's got a big help page to help you get started, and then you should be able to go target an AP. I have not tried this, although it does seem kind of fun. Also note that this tool may incorrectly say that an AP is vulnerable just due to benign retransmissions of data frames, but they're releasing it anyway, so there may be some false positives out there. That would be a good time to then go and make sure you check your firmware versions, look for patched versions, etc. But hopefully this can help see the show notes for the link. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. If anyone else has any tools, maybe they've been using some other tools, existing tools, their favorite tools to test their APs for compliance, do let us know. We've got one more bit of feedback today. Let's see here. Balzer, recommended reporting process for phishing, malware, virus, etc. Dear Dan and Wes, I'd be very interested in a teardown on reporting phishing and other security attacks. When I send a simple phishing email that I have not fallen for, what should I do? Do I just delete it, or do I report it? Who do you report this to, and how do you go about reporting it? Is it worth reporting these phishing attacks to protect your fellow humans? For example, is it worth reporting a phishing attack to VirusTotal, Google, phishing email sent from a domain provider, phishing email linked website domain provider, government, an antivirus company? Other types of security reporting might require separate teardowns, I'm not sure. Enjoying the show? Thank you very much, Balzer. Well, what do you think, Dan? How best to report some of these things?
I used to report all this stuff. I used to be very persistent about going in and reporting all this stuff, and then I stopped.
Ah.
There's just so much spam out there that I couldn't be bothered. Now I just... if my spam filter catches it, it catches it, and if it doesn't, it gets deleted. But I asked a few people who I know work in this area, and they gave a few suggestions. And I'm not recommending that you do this. I'm just saying this is what people I asked said. Get a spam cop account, report it there. There's something called Fish Tank, PFISH Tank. And if you have software running on your machine which scans for such stuff, check that box that says share info with software vendor, and Kaspersky will get copies of the stuff that Kaspersky or whoever you're using will get copies of any malware or spam. So make sure that they get that. And someone said the FBI also has a website that you can report stuff on that, but I didn't actually find that. I used to be quite persistent about this stuff, but there's only so much time in the world, and there's so much spam, and the spammers are winning. So I now don't do anything. I let my email provider worry about that. And I report that spam, but then they deal with it.
Got it.
If they deal with it. Yeah. Right. I can't. It's just too much time.
Too much. Yeah. Okay. Well, that seems pretty reasonable. Thanks all for the questions today and the feedback. Much appreciated. If you guys have anything you do with these sorts of things, have advice for stuff that we should cover, stuff we've missed, or just general feedback, please do let us know. JupiterBroadcasting.com/contact, TechSNAP.reddit.com, and we're both on Twitter. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the roundup. All right, now it's time for the final segment in today's show. I know it's sad to see us go, but before we go, we've got a ton of great links in this here roundup. First up, some news over at Grafana. Looks like they're working on a pull request for data sources as configuration. Hey, this is kind of an exciting little news item. It doesn't look like it's complete yet, but it's something I'll definitely be happy to see. What about you?
I'm not using Grafana, but all the Grafana graphs I've seen, I thought, oh, those look nice. And I have tried to get it running, but then just got sidetracked. And I was thinking this morning that I really want to get very nice metrics going for this new server that I've got up and running.
Totally.
Because one of the things that I've always wanted to do is get a graph of how the server load changes when you flush the cache.
Mm-hmm.
And by flush the cache, I mean all the static web pages that have been already generated and are still valid. What happens when you do that? But yeah, this looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Grafana's great. I've had some people refer to it as sexy graphite. It's gained a lot of support for all kinds of stuff recently. It has alerting capabilities built into it now. You can pull from all kinds of different data sources, not just graphite. I think they've even got like a Postgres connector now, or at least they're working on it.
Yeah.
Elasticsearch is in there, Influx, Prometheus, a ton of great stuff. Before, though, it was a little like you had to configure a lot of stuff with the UI, and it didn't necessarily amine itself to, let's say, generating everything with Puppet or Chef or Ansible. So once this PR is done, assuming that it goes well, we may see a more easily configurable, reproducible Grafana, which I think would be great.
Is it Grafana that can use something called collectd?
Yeah, collectd, you're still going to need storage. Collectd acts as the collector component, so you run it on all your nodes. You would send it to whatever storage you want. It definitely does support things like Graphite and others right out of the box, and then you'd point Grafana at that data store, and then Grafana can make arbitrary charts for you.
Yeah, and collectd 5 is available on FreeBSD, and it looks like a bunch of people are keeping it up to date.
Oh, awesome.
I see a whole bunch of commits over the past few months.
Hey, yeah, it's always nice. And when you especially then, like if you get that down, you can kind of have yourself a database somewhere, put collectors everywhere, and just have a bunch of data that you can throw together, and now you've got some monitoring going. Okay.
Yeah,
so
this sounds interesting.
Speaking of having more data in a pretty way, you pointed us over here to an interesting new tool I hadn't heard of, HTTP stat. Yeah.
I don't know where I got this reference. I think it was in one of the in-house feeds, like you or Alan or someone pointed me at this. And the original HP stat is compiled on Go. But then if you scroll down, he says somewhere closed. Let me find closed here. Closed. I forget where he put this. So the original one is Dave Cheney's HP stat. And in that one, it says, hey, listen, we're closed down. But then if you go from there and look at the one he refers to, it's a Python version. So the original HP stat, I think it's the original, was compiled on Go. This new one is a single Python program. And basically it tells you, for a single request, it tells you the DNS lookup time, how long it takes to get a TCP connection, how long the SSL handshake took, how long the server then processed, and how long it took to transfer the data. And it's nice and colorized. And I did one that compares the new and old Freshport server. It's not as nicely colorized as the diagram that comes on GitHub, but it was interesting to compare the two. And basically, the new server versus the old server, it's almost a 2-to-1 time frame. And most of that time is spent it's not in transfer. It's actually, it's very interesting where it is. Milliseconds, it doesn't look all that different. I can't see where the big gap is. Oh yeah, TCP connection takes a long time to look up. And the TLS handshake takes a long time as well. And all of that the server processing time is pretty much identical. 420 milliseconds versus 387 milliseconds. And someone was trying to point out the major difference here is Apache versus Nagios. Nginx.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I don't think it is, because it's the TLS handshake that takes so long. It takes only 86 milliseconds on the new server, but takes 400 milliseconds on the old server. So that's a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, is it possible that Nginx is just handling that termination faster? Is that where you're terminating SSL?
Yes. SSL is being terminated on each. Yes.
Be interesting to set up, just a fresh install of each, just a simple,
on the same server,
plain text website, install it from both, and then see what that looks like.
But yeah, it's 10-year-old hardware,
right?
And I'm sure there's not any encryption in there. There may be encryption built into the new one. I'm not sure. But anyway, very nice tool. Have fun.
Yeah, I love that it's just a simple Python. Go's fine too. You can get a nice static binary, but most of my servers have Python on there already, so it's super simple to be able to just wget or curl this Python script. Plus, it looks like it relies on curl underneath. I've already seen I've passed curl some options flags to get some of this data, so it's cool to know how it works underneath and have this really nice layer on top to be able to put in tickets or, put in a report, whatever you need to, maybe go show, hey, look, this is working, or we have a new performance problem on our website. Really just handy. So good work, Dan.
Thank you. Okay. I can't take credit. Someone else gave it to me, but anyway.
Too late. You have it.
Yes.
So this is no good. Up next, oh no, seems like someone's Gentoo server has been ransomwared. I don't like to hear that.
No, this is pretty ugly. The guy doesn't know how it happened, but it happened. And there's all kinds of ways. There's 5 pages of discussion
There's a huge discussion about this. You don't really hear, a lot of times it seems like, there's not a huge number of Gentoo systems out there. I mean, still plenty. And generally people who run Gentoo, they've gone through the hoops, so they understand how to configure things. I'm sure that is usually true of people who you like FreeBSD as well. But it can really happen to anyone. So hopefully there's some good insights here. Go check it out. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. And basically have good backups.
Oh, yes.
That's what the crowd is saying. If you skip to page 5 of the reports. But anyway, be interesting to see what comes out of this once they figure out what it was.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of having good backups, you'll probably need some storage for that, and you'll never guess, but Backblaze has got their latest hard drive stats out for Q3 2017.
Yes, and it is interesting. Now, people are going to zero in on the wrong things. Look at the things that have thousands of hard drives. Thousands. They're going to look and say, oh my God, look at what happened to WDC here. They have a 1.2% failure rate. It's only 180 drives, okay? Look at the 15,000 or the 33,000 drives and look at that. The Seagate, 33,000 drives, they had 3.28%. Don't look at the Seagate that had only 400 drives and had a 20% failure rate, or only had 140 drives and a 31% failure rate. Don't look at those. Look at the ones with a huge number of drives. Don't even look at Toshiba that had 0. Don't look at that.
Yeah, there's just not enough drives. We need big numbers to be able to make some good inferences.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned Seagate with huge numbers. Seagate is also listed there with less than with a 0.72% failure rate. So it all depends on what you're looking. Other brands of Seagate had 0 out of 1,000 drives fail over an annualized period. And yeah, read these carefully.
Yeah, definitely. These reports are always interesting, but only take them so far in that they are just one set of numbers from one company using them. But still, I'm glad that they published this stuff. It's fascinating for us to pore over. Okay, so moving right along. We covered something like this from one of their big name competitors last week, but it looks like there's been another flaw in bug reporting, this time over at Google.
Yeah, and it's interesting what the guy did. When you get a Gmail account, you select your email address, then you have to verify it, and then you can start using it. So what this guy did was get the Gmail address, then changed the Gmail address, and then verified it, and that got him in.
Wow.
There's a link in the show notes to the original blog post, which goes into much more detail. And all up, the guy got a little over nearly $16,000 worth of bug bounties for these 3 bugs that he reported. And he's also given another $3,100 to encourage him to continue research on this area. So, yeah, bug bounties encourage research. So good on Google for doing this and giving him incentive to continue through this. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see the right incentives at play here, and instead of getting, upset, be like, oh, no, hey, thank you for helping make this better.
It's much better.
Much better. All right, so now back to what we started the show with, which is maybe just helpful advice. Over at Increment Development, here's an article about called Center Stage, Best Practices for Staging Developments. Yes.
I started reading this. If you don't have a staging environment, you're probably flying on the seat of your pants. Basically, I like this paragraph. Staging is where you validate the known unknowns of your systems. These known unknowns are the dependencies, interactions, and edge cases foreseeable by the humans in your company and the machines they tend. Staging is where you gain confidence in your systems by consensus. So basically, before you push to production, you push to staging, and if staging is a reliable copy of production, then chances are your push to production will be pretty uneventful.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I know, there's certainly times when you're starting, maybe you don't need one right away. For a while, dev suffices, depending on your scale. But before too long, you're going to get to a time where you're like, boy, I really wish I just had a copy of production right here that I could test on without real customers getting impacted. And right then, you're like, oh, yep, I guess I do need a staging environment. So go check it out, see what you think, let us know. Maybe you have some good horror stories or success stories about staging environments, development, deployment practices at your company. I know I would be very much interested to hear all about that, so let us know about that. Before that, though, we've got a few more items in today's gigantic roundup. This one over at Privacy News Online. Turns out the recent catastrophic Wi-Fi vulnerability, we just talked about, called crack. Yeah, it was in plain sight for 13 years behind a corporate paywall. What's going on?
Bad reporting. That's what's going on. This article is all wrong. And I verified this by talking to a chap who works on Wi-Fi drivers.
Excellent.
So the specification has been available for more than a decade at no cost. So that's the 2016 standard, which is the latest, is also available at no cost, but you have to create an account if you go over here and do that. Oh. The other thing is, it is not a corporate firewall. The IEEE is a nonprofit. It is not a corporation. Right. It is a nonprofit. And one of the reasons that they're able to exist is through membership fees. And the most expensive membership fee listed here, which would get you access to this, is $200. But you don't have to pay that because the previously aforementioned methods of getting these standards are free. I hate this type of journalism. Sorry, it's not really journalism. I apologize.
Whoa, thanks for setting the record straight there, Dan. Much appreciated. Okay, so here's a little bit of information that I thought was fascinating. You checked it out as well.
Yes.
The Register is reporting that Oracle's top ZFS man calls for Big Red to let the file system upstream into Linux. Whoa.
Yeah, you really should listen to the to the video. It gives interesting stuff as to what was going on in Oracle once they closed source ZFS and all the stuff that was going on. It's just so fascinating to see how they were deploying it in huge data centers. Like they were putting petabytes onto this stuff. And then right now, it sounds like it's very hard to get existing culture at Oracle to go with the open source concept and say, hey, listen, let's shove all this into Linux. They want to be very protective of their intellectual property.
Yeah.
But this guy thinks that things are changing, and he sort of hints that eventually, yes, it will get released and it will wind up being in Linux. Wow.
Well, that would be a happy day for me.
Oh, yes.
I do think.
Yes.
And it would be an interesting sign of changing times if it does go through at Oracle, and might send some good signals to the open source community that, haven't always been there, especially in Oracle's case.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. All right. We got one more roundup item today. And I like this topic because, we talk about it, but don't always necessarily have a great set of examples. But here's some things you can do on the dark web that aren't illegal.
I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs out of this. The dark web isn't just for buying drugs and hiring assassins. It's a massive network of websites and communities that exists outside of mainstream internet culture. And there's plenty to do on the dark web without breaking any laws, from book clubs to crisis preparation. The deep web refers to anything you can't access in a search engine, either because it's protected behind a password or because it's buried deep within a regular website. The dark web is a subsection of the deep web that you can only access with a special browser like Tor to mask your IP address. It includes illegal markets such as the infamous Silk Road, along with plenty of other less objectionable websites. So the deep web is stuff that's not Googled, for example, and the dark web is that stuff which includes the illegal stuff. So you can go on the dark web. Don't worry about it. Deep web, well, there you go.
Interesting.
No, it's the other way around, isn't it? Yeah. The dark web is the illegal stuff, or includes the illegal stuff.
Right.
The deep does not.
But it can just be services that take your privacy seriously, or otherwise operate on the dark web. I know the New York Times now has a Tor Onion address, so you can go browse the New York Times over Tor if you would like to. And there's a ton of other non-illegal websites on there. So, hey, maybe you guys are using it. Do let us know. Hopefully you've enjoyed our roundup today. Anything you have before we get out of here and go browse the dark web for ourselves?
No, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us for today's episode of TechSNAP. This has been episode 341, broadcast live on October 31st, 2017. If you'd like to see more of the TechSNAP program, head on over to jupiterbroadcasting.com. There you can find the archives of this show, the previous incarnation of this show, and a whole bunch of other excellent tech, Linux, BSD, all kinds of content. Go hog wild in there. There's an awesome number of shows. You really can't go wrong with Jupiter Broadcasting content. Check out Ask Noah or User Error or the excellent Linux Action News. And don't ever miss our friends over at the BSD Now podcast. That's also a ton of great fun if you don't get quite enough BSD on this show. There you can also go find jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. That has the contact page. You can send us letters, emails, all that fun stuff. There's also the live stream, IRC, and the calendar to let you know when we're here live. You can also go to techsnap.reddit.com to post links for us to look at, or find us both on Twitter. He is at techsnap_Dan, and I'm at Wes Payne. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you here for next week's TechSNAP.